Take a listen to this.
I think he recommended Peyton Reed to direct Ant-Man and be like, no, what did you do that for? But I think James, and maybe that's one of the reasons that, that's fascinating. James Gunn, before he left Marvel, was recommending a lot of talent, right? And a lot of that recent talent has really led Marvel down the wrong path, a path that oddly DC is now going on. And that's really interesting. I do wonder if there's a correlation there.
You think?
That's crazy. No, I don't think that he's poisoning the competition. I think that, he honestly believes these are great recommendations. Right? That's really amazing. Because remember, in the early days of Marvel, they were hiring more professional people, right? People who were more established. But then when Gunn came in, they started taking risks on, quirkier, lower down people. Thanks again, X-Men Superfan. That's amazing. I never thought of that. That is really, really interesting.
Bruh! Grace coming out with the receipts here. She makes a great fucking point that I know a lot and I wise you up to a lot of shit that's going on in New Hollywood, but this shit is real. She makes a great fucking point. She's right. In the early days of the MCU, they were bringing in really, really good directors and writers. And then from the moment Gunn came in, suggesting people like Peyton Reed, and probably the people that worked in Phase 4 and Phase 5 are from Gunn's suggestions. Then he moves on to DC, and he's doing exactly the same thing. That's utterly worrying, isn't it? As she talks about the quirkier creatives and directors. Wow. That doesn't say much for the writers and directors he's bringing on to work on the DCU. Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. I am Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends, wives, and especially your boyfriends and your husbands. A very warm welcome to Tuesday's edition of the DCU Daily. You can follow me on X Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X, on Snapchat BMouth60, and on TikTok Mad Mickey's World. Wow, that's interesting. But I'll tell you something else. I was thinking about this. I was having a cigarette, terrible habit, but I was having a cigarette. That's where I do all my thinking and come up with my best story concepts and things like that and ideas for videos. But I was thinking about the first Shazam. Isn't it ironic that Walter Hamada and David F. Sandberg marvelized DC in a more entertaining, more successful way than Gunn has done? Think about the first Shazam. Forget Fury of the Gods, that was shit. But the first film makes a slight profit. I mean, you can't live off the profit that the first Shazam made. They only made a profit because the film cost under $100 million to make. And the profit is negligible because it's not enough to run a whole franchise off of. But still, the first Shazam is a very cute, adorable film. If I was a kid, I would have enjoyed Shazam. It reminded me of Gremlins and things I watched in the 80s, which was done purposely. It's got one of the best villains in the DCEU. Savannah, played by Mark Strong, is brilliant. He's up there with Zod. Look, he's not as good as Zod. Don't mock me. I'm not saying he's as good as Zod. But I'm saying, along with Zod, Mark Strong's Dr. Savannah is really good. And if The Rock wasn't such a self-absorbed twat, now don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Black Adam, but if he actually let WB and DC work off of the first Shazam film and they didn't interfere with what David F. Sandberg wanted to do with the sequel, because there was a plan that they went away from. But it's actually ironic to me that the first Shazam, look, I don't want DC marvelized. I'm not saying that. I'm saying Sandberg and Hamada with the first Shazam did a better job at marvelizing DC. Better than Gunn. So if they just went along that direction and didn't sway too far away from that, they might have been a little bit more successful than they've been now. Because Gunn does it. Gunn has done it here. he's tried to marvelise DC with the DCU. And actually, what Grace Randolph says here is amazing. Now, I was actually not going to do this in today's video. I wasn't privy to this information until 5 minutes before I decided to make the actual video. I was actually going to call this video Kindness is Zack Snyder, Kindness isn't punk rock. What is that punk rock thing all about? Why is punk rock kindness all of a sudden? I don't even get it. It doesn't make sense. But shall I tell you something about his Superman movie? There's a lot of good themes in there. Good themes. The fact that Clark Kal-El, Superman, all his life, thinks his parents have given him one message to do good, then through Luthor exposing the real message from his biological parents, he realises they wanted another thing for him. Now in Smallville, in season 2, Clark reads the message from Jor-El and it tells him that he's been sent to Earth to conquer. But the difference there is that Clark knows this from a young man, so he doesn't think that his parents want something else for him. But the point is, Jor-El is giving him these trials. Jor-El didn't really want him to conquer Earth. He wants Clark to know that's wrong and to fight against him. That's the point of Smallville. But this was something very different. But I kind of thought that was a good thing. I know people hate the fact that Jor-El and Lara wanted Superman to pollinate Earth and, have loads of kids. That's nonsense. But the fact that he thought they wanted something else for him, then he finds out the truth, is actually quite compelling. And some of the Lois Lane stuff is really good. Where the film goes into a direction I can't support is when the Gunn quirky humour comes in, and the fact that it's an overstuffed movie with characters that we shouldn't have in a Superman movie. So it's one of those films that's got good ideas, good concepts that are ruined by other ideas and good concepts. The idea that Superman goes to the Middle East to save this country and everyone's kind of bummed at him. And as he says, people are going to die. I like the idea of this passionate Superman. But again, it went too far because the guy is depressed for the whole movie and he's just screaming and being a beta and getting beaten up for half the movie. It doesn't work. So Gunn actually did have some good ideas within this movie, but they're poorly executed and then they're dumbed down by dumb ideas. So it's an inconsistent movie, right? And that's the problem. But what I really want to talk about today, and I did want to talk about Zack Snyder, I wanted to say that, kindness is Zack Snyder, punk rock is Zack Snyder. I mean, I was going to talk about how I think Zack Snyder's perfect in the sense that he's a good guy. Imagine all the horrible things the media, other fans were saying about him, trying to blame him for his daughter's death. That's disgusting, right? But Zack never responded at all, kept his head down through all of that, and utilised us, the fans, to fight with him to release the Snyder Cut. A film that's one of the best films I've ever seen. Not just the best comic book, one of the best comic book movies, maybe the best. I don't have a best anything. I think it's very difficult when you do like these rankings. It's difficult because my mind changes all the time. But the Snyder Cut is one of the greatest movies ever made. The man's an artist, right? Comparing him to Gunn isn't fair to Snyder. That's what I wanted to talk about today, but maybe we'll talk about it in another video. I wanted to say that, kindness is Zack Snyder, punk rock is Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder's actually punk rock. But that whole thing, that aesthetic, didn't work. It didn't work. Because to be kind, you don't tell people to be kind, you be kind. So Bob Geldof created this big pop concert to feed the third world. He inspired us all to be kind by being kind himself. But these days you get these celebrities and creatives and actors lecturing us about kindness. They wouldn't know kindness if it came up to them and nutted them on the head, right? You don't know about kindness, right? So forget about it. So that was nonsense. But that's what I wanted to talk about today. But what I actually want to talk about today is these right-wing YouTubers. Now, Grace Randolph's not a right-wing YouTuber, but these big YouTubers in general, but mainly the right-wing YouTubers, who are like a bit like a 2A bus. They never get there on time, but they get there in the end, and they get you to where you need to go to in the end. It's funny seeing Nerd Roddick and all these YouTubers now, exposing Gunn for what he is, a creative hack. You heard Grace Randolph there talk about how Gunn brought in these quirky directors and writers to the MCU. And he's going to do and has done exactly the same thing. But another revelation. One of these publications quotes Gunn, and he says that Supergirl is a space adventure. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy. No shit, Sherlock. Every Gunn movie, whether it's set in space or not, is like Guardians of the Galaxy. We've been telling you this for the longest of times. But apparently, Snyder fans are toxic. Snyder fans don't know what they're talking about. We would say any negativity to bring Gunn down. He's exposed himself. He's exposed himself. We didn't have to expose him. We're not making this shit up. Go back and watch the Superman movie. Go and watch Creature Commanders. Go and watch the Suicide Squad, a movie I quite like. Go and watch his 3 Guardians movies. He is a one-trick pony. He is. He doesn't even need to admit it at the end of the day. He's done. He's toast. So it's quite funny now seeing Grace Randolph and these right-wing YouTubers exposing Gunn and saying the things about him that we've been saying for years and months. This was never going to end well. But the reason they're all coming to the party suddenly is because of that Forbes article exposing Gunn's Superman movie for being a flop. And what a flop is, it doesn't matter that it brought in over 600 million, which is a solid figure. The problem is, like all the rest of these crazy creatives, they overspend, and these studios allow them to overspend. He could have spent half the money on this movie. They could have spent half the money on their marketing. But you have to spend more money to market a bad movie. Because if it's a great movie, it doesn't need much marketing. Titanic didn't need much marketing. I can't remember Titanic. I mean, I remember some posters of Leo and Kate, their faces over the Titanic ship. I remember a really neat trailer and some teasers and some TV spots, but that was it. It wasn't Barbie marketing. Old Hollywood never used to have to do Barbie-type marketing because their films were good. Barbie needed that hyper marketing because it's not a great movie. And they had to set out the illusion of hugeness, right? Then it's a great movie, it's amazing. It's not for me. A lot of people like Barbie and that's great and made about $1 billion for WB. Great. Good for you. I don't begrudge success even if I don't like the thing that becomes successful. But that's why they spend so much money on marketing today, not just DC and WB, but all of them. Because they're making lazy, creatively bankrupt shit. So you have to try and shine a turd. But you can't actually shine that turd. You can be rubbing with your Mr. Sheen polish. Why isn't this shit shining? Because it's shit. And shit stinks. It's disgusting, right? So you can't shine a turd. And that's what they tried to do with Superman. And it got worse for them when their marketing guru went off to Apple TV. Because he started off with a really good fucking teaser. That teaser made me think we were going to get something amazing. But we didn't get something amazing because ultimately we got something with some interesting concepts, as I said earlier, that weren't executed very well. And I warned you, didn't I? I warned you what would happen, that Gunn would be exposed. And now I find myself feeling bad for the man. Because I feel bad for him. The other day he's on a podcast talking about Peacemaker and crying because it reminds him of his dad and all of that. For me, it was a performative moment. It was bullshit. But maybe he's being genuine. I don't know. I don't think there's a genuine bone in the man's body. He's a salesman. The problem is, I've been around salesmen before. I remember working in a mobile phone shop. I was selling smartphones. I was selling hundreds a day, pay as you go, all of them. It was natural to me because I've got the gift of the gab. This guy was struggling because he didn't, and he used to say to me, Mick, it's not fair. You're getting all the sales because you're standing in the front. And I, no, Dave, it's because I talk to people. So when an old lady comes in and says, Mick, It's just for me. I don't use the phone. I just want to answer to my grandkids. Right, have the 3310, right? Or the 3330. It's a little phone. You can hold it. You can press the numbers. You're never going to press any numbers, but if you need to, you can in an emergency, right? You just have to press one button, a redial. And I was selling hundreds of these because I wasn't conning people. I was saying, look, old lady, old man, you only need this cheap phone. You don't need a £400 mobile phone. All you need is the 3310 or whatever it was, 3330. Do you remember those Nokia phones? It's there and it's easy. I didn't want to con old people, but I was making a lot of money through honesty. And that's how my entertainment company, Movies TV Mad, would be. I would be honest with you. I want to entertain you, right? Because I'm a fan. I've been watching television and film since I was a small boy. I sat there, I loved the long opening titles for films and TV. And I used to read out the names at the end credits. So by the time I was a teenager, I knew everyone working in Hollywood, at the BBC in the UK, ITV. I knew everybody's names. So I can tell you who created the soap E Street, something you've never probably heard of. A guy called Forrest Redledge, because I used to read the credits. So I knew everything about the entertainment industry because I was reading the credits and finding out about these people. Because I love that shit, right? I don't love the shit we're getting today, but I love all the creators we used to get. So, but now they want you to skip the credits. They won't even give credit to the people making the stuff because it's so shit. I don't blame them. So this is where we are. He's being exposed left, right and centre. I'm a decent person. I feel bad for the guy. But nothing that's being said is wrong. That's the real issue. He's history. It's over. Paramount will buy Warner Brothers Discovery. He is gone. The big question is, who takes his job? Well, that was slightly embarrassing, wasn't it? I was pressing the button and I couldn't press the bloody button, and now my video's kind of messed up. I don't care. We're sticking with this version. I made some great points. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you tomorrow. Now, let's try and press the right button.